KHOP88. Marnie isn't joining us tonight because she is undergoing some procedure, so she's chilling out tonight, and so our thoughts are with her. Make sure, hopefully everything's good with her, and I know she's missing tonight. And joining us from not Minnesota, my first clue was the palm trees in the background there, is Kathy Russett. How do you say Stacy or Stacey?
Yeah, no, you got it right the first time. It's Stacy.
Stacy, nice. Kathy Russett Stacy from Las Vegas. Nice to see you, Kathy. People will start dropping
good to be
in
on.
here.
Thanks, Jason.
Sure, yeah, people start dropping in here. You've had quite the path from Hopkins High School to Las Vegas. Give us the Cliff's Notes version.
The Cliff Notes version, you bet. So I ended up going to Northeast Missouri State University, which turned into Truman State University, to go to college, and I played ball there, and ended up staying in Missouri. So that was in a small town, Kirksville, and it was a population of about 20 to 25,000. It had the university, and then it also had an osteopath school. So the population during the school year was about 30 to 35,000. But I ended up finishing college there and stayed there, just due to circumstances regarding a job that I was offered, and then a company, and it was kind of like a startup for me. And I loved the town. I loved being in the small town. So I ended up staying down there until I was about 31 years old. In the meantime, married, divorced, married again, had a kid, and moved to Iowa. And that also was for another job opportunity. So I lived in Marion, Iowa, which is just north of Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And we bought an old farmhouse that was in town, kind of shambled and dilapidated. And my husband and I completely gutted it and redid it, and lived there for about 10 years. And then we had an opportunity when the housing market crashed, where we both could continue to work, but we wanted to get the hell out of winter. So some friends that we had in Las Vegas started sending us some information about the housing out here, and we took some time and ended up moving to Las Vegas, both continuing to work. And we've been here now 9 years, but I've changed my job, and I work at Allegiant Travel Company now. So that's kind of the Cliff Note version of getting to Las Vegas in 30 years.
Yeah. Okay, so rewind. You played college basketball. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep.
So
yeah, I did. I played all four years at that university.
That's an interesting school to go to from where we live. Not a lot of kids that we grew up with went to Missouri for school. Did they recruit you in high school? Were you okay? So tell us about that. Did you want to play college basketball? Was that something that you definitely wanted to do?
I knew that. Yeah. So yep. Big rewind, right? And you're going to have to, I'm going to force myself to remember the steps, but mostly I was kind of indifferent. I wanted to play sports in college. It could have been basketball or softball, either one. So the fall of our senior year, I started sending letters out to colleges, and then they would respond. So I started visiting colleges, and this was one that I had a family, personal family friend connection with. And just after visiting, I don't know, I think there were 2 for softball, 2 for basketball, and they provided a scholarship that was appealing. So that's pretty much the reason why I ended up going down there. I knew I wasn't going to stay in Minnesota. I didn't have a desire to stay in Minnesota.
Sure.
So That was the abbreviated version of stepping into playing ball at Truman State University
Yeah.
in tiny little Kirksville, Missouri.
Well, we
But it was
talked.
D2. It was a good conference.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we talked a little bit about, we've had athletes from all different teams on the show so far, but we haven't talked to too many
Yep.
of the girls basketball players. So I guess, you know, the way youth basketball, but girls basketball in particular, has changed since we were in high school is astonishing, especially at Hopkins, which is now like routinely a state champion. Probably the best women's college basketball player in the country, Paige Beckers, is from Hopkins. What was when you went and started playing college basketball? That's probably a good sense of like how good you were, how good the basketball you were playing at Hopkins was. How did that fit in? Did you fit in right away? Were you able, or was it a different level of competition?
It was a different level of competition, 100%.
Okay.
And a lot of it came from the fact that so there were players from St. Louis playing in bigger schools than we came from, and the conference that we were in, most of the players in the conference were from Chicago, St. Louis, Kansas City, again, bigger city, bigger schools than what I was used to. But it was easy to fit in. And I think a lot of the reason it was easy for me to fit in with my team is just the sense that, we all had, we were all in a small town, small campus. And by small, it was 6,000. I'm not saying it was, it's relatively small compared to where a lot of people went. But it was easy for us to really find a groove because there wasn't anything else to do. We weren't distracted. We were all like there and in basketball, in school. We saw each other all the time. We lived together. You got in a groove, and it was really easy to fit in. And it could have been completely the opposite. We could all hated each other, but I think because we all knew the circumstances and our coach had, recruited us, this wasn't, even though I sent a letter in, she wasn't going to pick me if she didn't have the thought that I could fit in. So, and I think she did that with everybody, which made it really easy.
Yeah. Do you still play?
Yeah, I don't play at all. I schooled my kid as he was growing up, but that was about it.
There's a woman who lives in my neighborhood who's about our age who I will occasionally see shooting, but just by herself at the park. And I know she played at some good, just by watching her shoot, I'm like, you were a player. Like you played at a certain level, the very least a good high school player. And I just wonder about that. Because with men, like there's all sorts of old guy basketball games that you can get into at the Y or whatever. But I don't know that there are many women's games to get into. Probably more every day, but.
You know what is interesting is that the WNBA started shortly after I graduated. So there was a small community or a network of people. And when we played ball, because it was and I think it was because it was Division II, and I have no comparison whatsoever. But our conference was all Missouri and skirts of Iowa, Illinois, and Kansas, right? So when we were all done playing, that network of people from those teams always stayed in touch. So we kind of found places to play because some of these women were trying to get into the WNBA as it was getting started. So after college, it was relatively easy to do that. But once you kind of get away from that community or that network, there really isn't anything, in a town or a city where they're setting up rec leagues for women to play ball. Yeah. Now, I will say this, out here, now that we have the aces for the WNBA team, there are a lot more rec centers and rec leagues for women of all ages to play ball, but I'm old and decrepit, so I don't
Oh, come
run. I
on
don't
now.
run like I used to.
How what are your memories of playing basketball at Hopkins? Not to dwell on this too much, and we can stop talking about basketball anytime we want, but I remember going to games. I mean, I remember you guys being a pretty competitive group. We've had somebody on the show said, boy, you know, all the girls from West showed up to play at Hopkins High School and were like, man, the girls from North just killed us and made us all quit. Uh, what are your memories?
Um, Interestingly enough, I do remember that it was mostly the North girls that played basketball. You know what I remember? The thing I remember the most, and this is totally not a basketball related thing, is I remember that we were all going to each other's sporting events. I remember the crowds for our games were awesome because everybody would show up and support you. And it was, you know, we'd go to hockey, we'd go to the boys, you know, that's what we did. And that's the best memory I have from playing ball, is just getting on the floor and knowing there are people in the stands that really want to be there and cheer and see the team do well. And it always motivated us, always. So it was really, that's the biggest memory I have from playing ball in high school.
That's great, because I remember the same kinds of things from just going. I did not compete in any sports that anyone wanted to come watch, but I would go to, you know, I would often go to a girls' basketball game by myself because I knew that our friends were going to be there, and it was a fun place to hang out. And that it was a supportive environment. So
definitely.
That's a cool thing to remember. We've had a fair number of women on the show who played softball, and they have great memories of Bonnie Johnson, who is definitely a big personality. How did she compare as a coach to, I believe it was Mr. Anderson, who was the girls basketball coach? How were their coaching styles similar or different?
So love the questions, Jason, and love them. Mr. Anderson actually left after my sophomore year, so I only played with him for a year.
Okay.
And then we had Coach Mindy Erdahl.
All right.
And she was there for a couple of years. Yeah. She was not a team favorite by any means. She was very, very different than Mr. Anderson. Which she was good, don't get me wrong, but she was very different, so she wasn't a favorite. But I think that also kind of got our team rallied together to be a team too, because it was kind of, okay, we're gonna get out there and do what we need to do as a team, in spite of whatever we felt regarding our coach. So that was good. And she was a good coach, don't get me wrong. You know, when you look back as an adult and go, man, was I a petty kid or just an asshole, you know? But comparing her to Bonnie is like nothing. Bonnie was just eccentric, driven, focused. She was, you know, sometimes you would think she was aloof, but as I sit here and think about it, there's no way that woman was aloof. She was just trying to put something out there to get us riled up, or, you know, get us thinking or whatever. So oh yeah, BJ, she was interesting. She was definitely interesting. But best softball I ever learned was from her, 100% hands down.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. 100%. Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Have you done any coaching?
Yeah. Yep.
In basketball, softball?
I coached a JV basketball team. Yep, coached JV basketball team for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, I think it was. So after I was done with school, there was a local town that needed some help coaching, so I did that. I did their JV and their freshman a couple years, and then of course my kid, I coached baseball and basketball for him for, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years.
Oh,
Long time.
fantastic. Did you find
Yeah.
yourself borrowing from your high school coaches, doing things that you knew you didn't like?
Yeah. The good-
Okay.
Yeah, everything's like, what'd you learn, right? What'd you learn from the good? What'd you learn from the bad? I did find myself a few times understanding why coaches screamed at us, because I just sat there and looked at some of these kids like, what the hell are you even thinking? So there were some moments where I had to step back and revisit my choice of coaching at the moment. But yeah, I definitely took away, I mean, part of me growing up as a kid is that, I had a family full of coaches, and my dad coached football and baseball at high school level. My brother coached basketball at a varsity level for a high school for several years. I had a lot of people in my family that were coaches, so I drew from everybody when I did that.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. I didn't know that. That's interesting. Yeah, those progressive insurance commercials about becoming your parents just keep ringing in my ears all the time. And when I've done some coaching too, and it's like you say something and you're like, how did that just come out of my mouth? That's clearly right. From, junior high or whatever. It's very funny.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we like to ask everybody is, did you have and maybe it's a coach, but did you have a teacher or somebody, in high school that really stuck with you, that had an impact on you, that maybe you even still think about today?
Yep. Don Bates. He didn't teach me directly because he was a band teacher, but I was in choir, and he was, I mean, anybody that was in band knows Mr. Bates was just constantly hanging around talking to kids, right? He was just in the music department, just catching everybody's ear, and he was an interesting person, and that's one person. Definitely. And then I can't think of her name. I wish I could think of her name off the top of my head. She was in the business department. She taught keyboarding and accounting and some of the business related electives.
Yeah.
Short woman, dyed blondish, whitish hair, smoked like a mofo constantly, and coffee all the time. But she actually got me my first job in high school, which was related to business, and that is really what got me thinking that I wanted to pursue business, some type of career in business, whatever it could be. So when I got to college, I was a little bit more prepared with what I wanted to do. So definitely those two people were the biggest impact.
So what was that, your job in high? What was it? And did you have that throughout for several years?
No, I just had it for a summer, and it was really interesting. A woman that owned her own business, she did medical videos. So she would record several doctors doing medical procedures, and then she would sell those and distribute those to clinics and colleges, things like that. And I basically was her, I guess what you'd call an admin assistant now. I did anything and everything to help her, so that all she had to do was take care of the recordings and the selling and marketing of her product. So yeah, that was my first job for a summer. And then after that, that was my junior year, sophomore or junior year. I can't remember. I could drive. I know that. So it had to be at least junior year. Yeah.
Yeah, we've visited on a number of jobs that people had in high school, and that sounds like you're definitely at the professional side. You weren't delivering pizzas or working at the grocery store. That's a real office setting there.
Yeah. Yeah, how the tides turned, because when I got to college, I was schlepping pizzas. So
Yeah, you do what you have to do, right?
all good though.
Yeah,
That's right. There's money in the pocket.
yeah. Well, that's interesting about Mr. Bates though, because we've had a number of people. In fact, we have a show coming up where we're going to talk to a bunch of people who were in band. But he had an impact on me as well. But I was actually in band. So what do you think it was about him? Because he was a weird dude in many ways. Like, again, smoked, drank a lot of coffee.
Yeah.
Plus, he was an old school sort of jazz guy, and we were like, "What is up with this character?"
Because you know what? His biggest impact is that he would listen. Like he would tap you on the shoulder and start a conversation, and then he'd just let you talk. Right? He was just, I don't know, that you just felt comfortable with him to say anything, do anything, whatever, and he always had some kind of something that made you think about what you were saying, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how to explain that, but when you had a conversation with him, you didn't end the conversation like, what the hell is that old dude sitting around yakking at me for? You felt like you walked away with something,
Yeah.
That was the part I liked the most about him.
Interesting. Do you still sing?
Karaoke, hell yeah.
All right, I have to believe that Las Vegas does karaoke a little different maybe than the rest of us are used to. Is that true?
There are a variety of ways to sing karaoke in Las Vegas. That is absolutely true. You can rent a private room and have your own party. I don't do those because that's not near as fun to me, because I'd rather have strangers just judge me and I can walk away from that.
Nice.
Then there's the true karaoke in Chinatown. So there are several places that they are regiment about karaoke. I mean, you have to sign up 4 to 5 hours before karaoke even starts to even get on the list. And then there are really large venues for karaoke out here. And when I say large, I mean, 500 people are in a room, or not a room per se, but in a club, or they have an outdoor garden here where I like to go, and man, you're just up there putting it all out there for hundreds of people, which is pretty crazy.
All right, what's your go-to karaoke song, Kathy?
I really don't have one. I do have friends that they like to hear Neil Diamond, which everybody gets Neil Diamond. They like to hear Copacabana from Barry Manilow. So I would say if there were a couple of songs, one from Neil Diamond, and I don't even care what one it is, and then Copacabana for sure.
That's great. Because I'm with you on the Neil Diamond. I like to go Neil Diamond. And I sing I Am, I Said, because that's mostly just like sort of grumbling. You don't really have to hit the notes.
Yeah, just spit it out.
Right. But I blame my parents, because the Manilow thing is there too. I blame my parents because that was the music that was in my house growing up. We had a lot of Billy Joel in my house and a lot of Neil Diamond. So yeah, we watched all those Barry Manilow specials on TV whenever they came on too, right?
Oh, of course, of course. Me too. I mean, I don't remember the specials, but I remember the music being played.
Yeah. Have you taken up any hobbies during the pandemic that you weren't doing before?
Not any new hobbies. But but hiking for sure. I did a lot more hiking than I would have normally, mostly because I didn't have to commute to work. So getting out of the house was a huge bonus.
Yeah.
And I definitely played more tennis. But it's one of those things where it's like I'm a jack of all trades. So if you throw something at me, I'm going to do it, which is pretty much if it was outdoors during the pandemic, I was like, I'm in. I don't care. Let's figure it out.
What's your go-to hiking spot out there? There's a number of choices, I know.
There's a lot of choices. I'm not sure how familiar you are with the mountain ranges out here. There's Mount Charleston, which is the peak for Vegas. And there are, I don't know, a dozen or more trails out there, but they do have one trail that's at a higher elevation through pine forest. So I like that one. And then there's Red Rock Canyon, which is on the west side of Vegas. But I don't actually go into Red Rock on in the canyon behind, like the mountain range. There's a canyon back there, and there's not a trail. It's basically a wash, and you walk through that wash up to a peak, and then you have to climb down the rocks, another wash, which is literally these gigantic boulders. And that one is my winter go-to because it's a little warmer in the winter to go to that one.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, I've heard that about Vegas, is that it's sort of the underrated aspect of visiting there is all these surrounding, parks and hikes and trails and places to camp and rock climb and stuff. So that's cool to hear.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. In fact, I think that Red Rock is actually for mountaineers or people who climb rocks, is like the highest rated place because of the number of climbs that are available and the types of climbs that are available. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you have, so if people are coming to Vegas and they say, okay, what's the thing I should do that, isn't on the beaten path, isn't, the Strip or whatever, like what's the thing that you really love to do about Vegas that maybe flies under the radar?
That's not touristy, but someplace that's cool.
Could be touristy. Yeah. What's your favorite? What's your thing?
So, but there is a Vegas icon that I'm shocked was not a known thing. And maybe it's just because before I ever moved out here, I knew about it. There's a place called the Pepper Mill, and it's a restaurant and a lounge. And it's 60, 70 years old. So it's been around forever. The movie Casino was filmed in it. So it's Pepper Mill and the Fireside Lounge is the name of it. It's actually on the Strip, on the northern side of the Strip, I think across from Circus Circus. So not, the best part of town or the best part of the Strip, but it's super kitschy. I mean, the food is just average, but the atmosphere is crazy awesome. It's crazy awesome. They have open fire pits in the lounge, and then these big crazy couch settings in the lounge, and you have cocktail waitresses. Your server does not bring your cocktails. You have a cocktail waitress that brings your cocktails.
Wow.
It's really interesting, actually. And that is definitely one place, just if you want to do something that's totally not modern Vegas, that would be the place.
That's great. Pepper Mill. Love it. Well, Troy Finn is watching tonight, and he called attention to your Allegiant Stadium Raiders tee there. Have you signed on as a Raiders fan because they're Vegas's team?
no, heavens, no. Golden Knights fan, but not a Raiders fan.
All right.
No, I work for Allegiant, so I get freebies. I get free T-shirts and stupid stuff like that.
Okay.
So I'll never turn those down. But no, I'm not a Raiders fan. I'm a Chiefs fan ever since I lived in Missouri.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the stadium's pretty awesome. I will say that I did get a tour. It's a very, very cool place.
Do they call it the Death Star?
I won't go there for a Raiders game. I'll go there for something else.
Well, what if the Chiefs?
Oh my God. Oh yeah, I have to go for the Chiefs, and they will play the Raiders there eventually. So I need to pay attention to that. Yeah, it is actually. do they call it the Death Star? I'm out of the loop on some of that.
A cab driver I had in Vegas called it the Death Star, but I didn't know it. That was when it was still under construction. It was one of those deals where we drove by it and I said, "Oh my God, that's the football stadium." And he was like, "Oh yeah, the Death Star, yeah."
Yeah.
Uh,
What a reference.
yeah, it was cool. Like as I said, my experience in Vegas is very limited, but I love being a stranger in a new place and just sort of soaking it up. I stayed downtown when I was there at the Golden Nugget, and was just blown
Yeah.
away by the whole deal. It was very cool.
Yep. Love Fremont Street. Freak.
Yeah, I talked to I was telling you I wrote a few stories when I was out there, and I talked to the guy who manages the sports book at Golden Nugget for a story, and he was everything you'd hope an old Vegas sports book guy would be. He had all these great stories, and like started there as a numbers runner when he was still playing college football, so it was it was great. It was like Vegas.
Yeah, if you can, it is. If you can find the older people that are working in Vegas, which, that's mostly downtown where you're staying at. But man, if you can catch their ear and they want to chat at you, there are some stories that are unbelievable in this town. And who knows if they're true? They're just so fun to listen to because to them it's like it happened. Period. Don't care if it's a lie. It happened.
Right. Do you have a game? Do you gamble, and do you have a game that you play?
I do. I don't gamble often, but I like to play I don't play poker rooms. I do play the Texas Hold'em tables.
Okay.
Because I'm only playing the dealer. Yeah. So, but yeah, I love playing that game, and I will take a couple $100 and run down there every once in a while. And it's more fun. I mean, everybody says, "Oh, do you go to the local places?" I never go to the local places. I always go to the Strip, or I always go downtown, because you can sit and chat and meet people from everywhere. And that's way more fun than hanging out with the duds at the local joints.
Yeah, it's from literally all over the world, right? Like you just really, it's just a parade, right?
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Yep. By the way, Kathy Cheetah has joined us. Kate Stelmach is in the house. So
hi, Kathy Cheetah.
She weighs in with thinking that the teacher you're trying to remember was Pat Sullivan. Does that sound familiar?
Yes, that was it. That was totally it. Yeah, Kathy and I were in like DECA or something together for a portion of time in high school. That's definitely her.
Yeah.
Nice one.
Good pickup there.
Yep.
Well, is there anything that you recall from our high school experience, or any thoughts that you had after Marnie got in touch with you about coming on, that you thought we'd talk about that we didn't cover yet?
Got it. This is so sad, and I hate saying it, but if it's my age, it's my age. There's like bits and pieces of so many things, but nothing that I can just recall and go, "Oh man, I wish we could talk about that," because there's not enough of it to recall to talk about it. So it might be my age. I don't know.
I get that. But I think that some people have that happen 10 years later. Like it's just, whatever. You fill the void with different things and it just gets edged out.
Yeah. One thing that I was always intrigued by is I don't think anybody from our high school, or at least anybody I really knew, we still had Friday night. Didn't Hopkins still have a bunch of high school kids that ran the Strip and in Hopkins, like for a fun thing to do?
Oh, sure.
Because we used to go. I remember going to Rocky Rococo's after games and stuff, and there was always just massive amounts of people around, and I couldn't remember if that was, if it was just because it was us or if there was other stuff. And then I remembered that maybe the Strip in Hopkins still had people driving up and down when we were in high school. So.
Oh yeah. Mr. Finn is here, and we've talked about that with him and a couple of other people.
Yeah.
That was definitely a scene. I don't know how much of a scene it is anymore today, but yeah, that was a thing. And we would occasionally get caught up. And then, I mean, you were friends with Doug Robertson, of course, in high school. And, you know, there was a group of us, and we all sort of we drove our parents' Toyotas or Hondas. They were not impressive cars. But you would occasionally find yourself on Main Street in Hopkins on a Friday night driving a Civic or something, and like, all right.
Hey, you made it. I can't even say I made it. That's awesome.
A guy would come up next to you in a Rumbler and like, we're not doing that.
Right.
Troy reveals to us in the comments that, yeah, it does not happen much more anymore, but it was very fun back in the day. So
yeah.
And I do remember the Rocky Rococo's scene as well.
Yeah.
Post games.
Yeah, what a cluster. Yeah.
Exactly. Right? Can you even imagine? Yeah. Well, I want to remind everybody who we have coming up. Next week, we are joined by John Dale. The following week, Mike Eiley. We have Wendy White coming up on the 26th of October. A bunch of guys from the baseball team on the 9th of November. So you might have to tune into that, Kathy. I don't know how much crossover there was between the softball team. Well, actually, we've talked about this a little bit. There was some mutual support there, wasn't there?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. Especially because the years that we were in high school, both baseball and softball went to the state tournament.
That's right. Yeah, both really good and both fun games to go to. We were remembering with Heidi Zeke that the way the softball team played, there was sort of a hill up behind there with like shade trees. And I just remember going to those games with Doug and Tony Cobb and Bob Gollin. We would just sit up there and watch you guys play softball, which was always super fun.
That was the perfect hill. Yeah,
it was great. And hear various dads bark at the umpires, which is great.
Oh yeah. Shit. Too many of them.
And then we are looking forward to many Don Bates stories on the 7th of December when members of the band are going to join us. So that's what's coming up on KHOP88. Kathy,
good schedule.
Yeah, we're getting there. I mean, you are show number 68, if you can believe it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Right? Marnie always jokes about how we're going to get everybody in the class on here, and I just laugh. But we have
I don't know. I think you're on the way.
We are on. Yeah, we're closer now than we were a year ago. It's amazing we've done this for more than a year. Well, thank you so much for agreeing to hop on and joining us from the desert.
Thank you.
And yeah, good.
Yes.
Good luck to you out in Vegas. Thanks for sharing with us.
Thank you.
Everybody else, we'll see you next Tuesday for John Dale. Take care, Kathy.
All right. Thank you. See you later.